Hello guys, this podcast episode is on how to combine perk cards with weapons and why combining them is so important to build creation. The synergy between weapons and perk cards is very important, as you will soon hear. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm planning on doing more podcasts in the future and more builds on my YouTube channel. So if you like my content, please consider subscribing. Okay, on to the podcast. So in Fallout 76, the basis of making a combat build is to focus on is to choose what weapon that works best with your cards. This might be obvious. This might be obvious at first, but there's much more that some players don't think about. In this podcast, I will explain the Fallout weapon archetypes. We'll explain what types and examples of weapons that work best in builds, what special points to focus on to make each weapon type overpowered, and finally, after all that, I will talk about unique weapons, how they compare to other weapons of their same type. So, in Fallout 76, there are three main weapon archetypes: small guns, big guns, and melee weapons. But there are many other types than those three. There are melee weapons, there are unarmed melee weapons that use fist-based weapons. There are marksman and commando rifles. There are big guns that are also used as shotguns, so they're both, etc., etc., etc. There are so many that archetypes that I could make a whole other episode on weapon archetypes, but this episode will be focused on perk and weapon synergy. So if you want me to talk about weapon archetypes, please comment down below. If you want to see that, I'd definitely be up for doing that. Okay, and on the rest of the video. Knowing the weapon type is important because each weapon has multiple perk cards that work amazingly with the weapon you're using. For example, the perk card Love the Spread increases the range of weapons that shoot at least 3 bullets at once. This perk card is specifically used for shotguns or other weapon types that shoot multiple bullets at a time. But, for example, it can be used with, for example, commando weapons, since they don't have enough bullets to shoot at the same time. So basically that range wouldn't apply because they don't have enough bullets to shoot at the same time. There are also cards that work with a variety of weapons, or all weapons. The Action Boy and Action Girl perks work well with any build for the most part, since Action Point regen is important for almost every situation, even if you're not using VATS build. The type of weapon used is very important to have a successful build. For example, the commander weapons like the combat rifle are amazing for VATS builds, as their low action point cost when they're modified is very low. It has a very fast weapon speed once you modify it, and when you use legendary effects. But I will talk about the legendary effects in a different episode and how they combine, how they contribute to builds. Most use this weapon, the combat rifle, because of its VATS build potential. Using not only a weapon that works well with the perk cards, but a weapon that works well in general combat is essential to making a high-level build. Choosing what special points to pick for Choosing what special points to pick for any build is up to the player. There's no best special point that you can get, and there's no worst point to get. All perk points are good in their own ways. Yes, even charisma for your veterans, as people know charisma is kind of a dump stat. Nobody really uses it, but there are in this game there are many other options for builds with the charisma itself, especially with ghouls. The weapons you use are entirely up to the player as well. Even the worst weapons can be good if you use the right perks, points, and cards. For example, the Bowie knife is considered the worst sharp weapon, at least according to Google and probably several other people, as it only has 2 modifications and its damage is the least in its type, so it does the least amount of damage of any sharp weapon that most people own. You can make this a mid-game weapon by maxing out your strength. So maxing out the strength as much as you can to boost that weapon's damage, and using it in, for example, VATS is gonna give it crit damage, or you just max out your strength as much as you can, so you can make it really OP, make it a mid-level weapon, even though it's really weak at first. So any weapon even weak weapons can be very good for builds. Weapons like the plasma cutter and the warglaive are top tier weapons and are used by most high level players. So most of their builds focus on those. Range weapons like bows, automatic rifles, pistols, sniper rifles. They're all used for all player levels from low to high. Most most levels you can use all these builds. There's so many weapons in this game, and the creators of Fallout 76 in Bethesda include all these weapons so you can make different builds out of them. They want you to make different builds. That's one of the main things they want with this game for players to do is make a variety of builds. They want to see what players make. Like I said before, all weapons can be used, and these are just examples of some weapons you could use. There are so many weapons in the game, like I've said, so and you can make a build out of any weapon, even if it was bad. Next, let's talk about unique weapons. Unique weapons are weapons that have unique looks, effects, or abilities that their counterparts don't have. These weapons usually better in terms of stats, so they are used more than regular weapons. For example, so the cold shoulder shotgun. This one does cryo damage. Actually, it used to slow down enemies, but it actually doesn't do that anymore. Just cryo damage. So it's a double shotgun, but it has the auto. It has the quad legendary effect, which increases its shotgun count to 8. So it does not just 2 shots; it's 8 ones, and just cryo damage. So technically, in terms of combat potential, it's better. The Holy Fire Flamer is the next. It has a cursed ability that increases damage but decreases um, weapon durability. You would see how OP that would be compared to just a regular flamer. Of course, both are very very good, but the reason the Holy Fire. I mean, most high level players use the Holy Fire Flamer to do insane damage to enemies. Makes sense why it'd be so good. The Fixer sneak focused combat rifle. It's a combat rifle called the Fixer. I'm not sure what the reference is because I'm sure it's a reference to something, though I'm not sure exactly what it is. I mean, most weapons are referencing to something. Um, it's used for sneak builds, but I'm not sure if people exactly use it these days. But in the beginning of the game, like when it first came out, so I've heard it was used a lot because it's really potential for sneak builds. Anyways, these weapons mixed with the best perk cards can make a truly unstoppable build. Um, I mean, using unique weapons over regular weapons in terms of high level builds is going to work very very well compared to the ones that don't have those unique weapons. We're going to do less damage, going to have worse durability, all that stuff. Unique weapons are going to do way more damage than just a regular weapon would, as example of the cold shoulder, like I talked earlier. I would talk about legendary effects on these weapons, or not specifically on these weapons, but just in general, I'll talk about legendary effects in a later podcast episode. When making a unique build that no other player has made, think about using legendary perk cards. Each perk card is unique to each other, and there are some most players don't actually use. For example, the legendary perk called Brawling Chemist is one that others don't seem to use as it. Excuse me. Brawling Chemist is one that others don't seem to use as much as it doesn't have too much combat utility, but it's actually really OP for certain builds. It produces 2 combat based chems every 40 minutes. Might not seem very great, but if you're using a ghoul character, you need lots of chems to keep your meter up. So if you play many hours of this game, exploring the world, doing events, this perk card could be very OP if you just play a ton of the game. So you wouldn't need to go like out and use tons of caps on buying chems if you're like a mid level player, or finding farming routes. It's gonna give you the combat chems you need rather than going out of your way to get them. Each legendary perk card is specifically made to be an overpowered endgame perk card to help players succeed. Bethesda made most perk cards in this legendary perk cards to be used in any kind of build, and they're specifically made most perk cards to be used with one of the weapon archetypes. So basically, Bethesda intended for these perk cards to be very high level players to use. I mean, you're getting like mid level players, but as you level up to even like it goes past level 300, you're gonna get more of these legendary perk cards and you be more OP. They're meant to increase your combat potential and give more build ideas. Weapon and perk card synergy are essential to any build, even if the build isn't combat based. Knowing all this is very important for a successful build. So make sure you know all this and maybe watch the video again. All this is very very important to a very OP unstoppable build. You're going to do very good if you combine all these tips, and like making, like, for example, a very massive sneak build is going to be OP with some of these tips I've said. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and hope you have a great day. Goodbye.